Good day, everyone, and welcome to the Casper Association Community Call, hosted and run by the Casper Association. We are joined by Piotr from Casper Association, Meta and Jake from Casper Labs, and Dr. Adel from AlphaFin. We will open up for a Q&A towards the end of the call, handing it off to you, Piotr.
Thank you very much, Ashley. Welcome. It's our pleasure to host you again on our weekly community call. And for today, we have two guests and as well a new portion of information on the current status. So first of all, I will start with my part. I would like to talk a little bit about Q3. So we are preparing and start development on the fourth upgrade for the Casper network. With the team, we are very much focused on the following items. Let me show you the public roadmap that we have. So here you have the column that is about Q3. The most prominent item on this list is FastSync. So here we need FastSync to open up new possibilities in terms of light clients and preparing the integration with various bridges and oracles. So here, this is our main effort in terms of bringing this new feature on board. But we have a lot more to offer and to discuss. So we are working hard towards NFT support. So that means it is both on the standard side. So we have our own standard, which is CEP 47. This is an open standard that is also available for review in our CEP repository. You can go at any time to our GitHub, and then from GitHub, there is a possibility to check on all CEPs. There is a CEP's repository with pull requests. So pull requests are our CEP that are under review, so our proposals. You can find the CEP 47 right here, and you're very much welcome to check what is this about. So read the proposal and also comment if you have any doubts or any ideas how to improve this. You are very much welcome. And in general, at Casper Labs and Casper Association, we encourage the common collaboration. So if you have new ideas or would like to just comment either on the current work or on our future plans in terms of the roadmap, there is a way to do so. Last week, I presented you the links. So here in this project, we have also discussions enabled. And I already saw first feedback that we are missing a little bit on the details. And this is already an open item for me. We'll be enhancing the features that we are presenting on our roadmap just to provide more details, more description, so you will be able to comment on this also on more detailed level. Then for the timeline, Q3, it means that we have 3 months to develop, test, and deliver the fourth major upgrade of our network. Currently, we are in the middle of the first month. In our internal methodology, we spent the first 2 months on the feature development, and the third month is devoted towards testing, delivery, and also more conceptual work on the research and design for Q4. So as for now, we are wrapping up the 1.3 release, which is about to be deployed to the testnet. 1.3, which we will discuss a little bit in the details just in 2 minutes. The 1.3 release is now being cut and handed over for our internal test. So here we will check this against our various automated tests, checking on the performance, security, and all other factors that are important before we release it further. The next step is to hand it over for testnet validators. This, according to our current agenda and timeline, will happen in the end of July. And then early August, we are planning to move forward with the mainnet upgrade. Okay.
Yeah, so Piotr, I can add a
yes.
little bit more color there. So just so the community understands what our process is, right? So right now, the development team is finishing up the last bits of testing. And as Piotr indicated, so with every pull request, right, there is a rather large amount of testing that happens that it builds on top of itself, right? So when we initially started building the project, maybe at 100 tests, right? And then with each pull request, the developers add new tests with new functionality, right? So each piece of functionality has this large battery of tests that go with it. So now, whenever a pull request is cut, that code is automatically tested using continuous integration, continuous deployment, right? So there's actually tooling that will spin up Casper networks and run a bunch of scenarios against those Casper networks, right? And the reason for that is some of the functionality needs to be tested at the consensus level. Some of the functionality can be tested at the more granular node level. Some of the functionality is very, very low level within the execution engine itself. So there's different layers of testing that happen. And then the last and final layer of testing that Piotr talked about was the performance testing, where we spin networks up that are about the size of 300 to 400 nodes inside of AWS using Terraform and Ansible scripts. So we'll spin up, and it's a variety of different configurations. Some of the times the networks will have 75 validators. Sometimes they'll have over 100 validators with 200 or 300 read-only nodes. And then we will run synchronization tests. We will run load tests. We will run joiner tests. We will run, we even have what we call stinky, which is an equivocating node. So we have a malicious node that we're using for our testing. All of this testing happens even before it gets to testnet, right? And the expectation is for the internal KPIs for the node that we never take a step backwards, right? So there's a base level of performance that we expect. There's a base level of memory utilization and CPU utilization that we track. And with every single release, it's only allowed to go one way. It's only allowed to get better and better and better, right? So super important that we have this kind of testing. And then after that, it will go into testnet, where we will watch carefully how the system performs. Testnet's actually pretty large, it's over 800 nodes. So our expectation is that with 1.3 release, if you want to pull up the announcement there, we can talk a little bit about what's in 1.3. Yeah, so what's in 1.3 is we have networking enhancements that will be happening. So our expectation is that the network will become even more efficient than it was before, that we will be optimizing for validator messages. And so when you've got a large number of nodes joining the network, that it does not represent additional load on the system. Killian, yes, read-only node is just a node that is not bonded. So whenever you run a Casper node, you have to supply a private key. And the reason you have to supply a private key at the point you instantiate the node is that the node system, the node itself, doesn't know whether the validator or the node is bonded to the network, because bonding all happens on chain, right? So at the system level, the system is not aware what is happening on chain. Right. So whenever you run a node, you have to run a node with the private key. And whether or not that private key holds any token on it or not, all happens on chain. So the node doesn't actually know about it. So the on-chain auction is how a node is bonded, right? The Casper auction. To kind of take a slight left turn here. And so in 1.3, there will be simplifications on the endpoints that make it easier to query the node. So you no longer need the global state hash in order to get information. You can do it with the block hash. You can get more historical auction information. This is a new feature to make it easier to walk back the state and see what happened in previous block heights with respect to the auction. And on the smart contracting front, we have a pretty big enhancement, which is getting the call stack. We've had this request before from contract authors to be able to know when a contract calls another contract, who actually invoked the contract, right? That is the get call stack functionality. And we also are introducing this notion of dictionaries. This notion of dictionaries is super important for scaling out implementations of ERC20 and NFT protocols, wherein you can keep track of the items within a collection, right? That's what dictionaries are all about. And we will be providing sample code for, CEP 47, which is the NFT protocol, as well as the ERC20 that now uses this dictionary method. So for those of you that are building implementations of ERC 20, ERC 720, or ERC 1155, we know that these implementations are underway in the DevX DAO. You will need to take a look at the dictionary implementation and modify your implementations to match this. Additionally, because there are new RPC endpoints, the Golang SDK, the Java SDK, and the JavaScript SDK, and the Python SDK will all need to be updated with new versions that add these new RPC endpoints, right? These helper methods to make things easier to use. We're also improving the deploy processing. If you've sent a transaction right now to mainnet, you probably noticed there's a little bit of a delay that is undesirable, where a transaction tends to almost wait for one round before it gets into a block. That is due to a small hiccup in the logic. We're streamlining that, so you'll see the deploy hit the next block, right? So it'll speed up deploy processing in terms of the entire round trip.
Great. I think that this is it in terms of the technical release notes and the scope for 1.3. I know that Alex is with us. Alex, if you could share the updates on the research front with the community.
Certainly. We are actually heavily involved currently with developing auctions for Metacask, and that also involves actually speccing out and prototyping certain improvements to the NFTs that Meta has already mentioned, such as use of dictionaries, use of the entire call stack. So one particular interesting thing is you can do with the call stack functionality is that you can actually have contracts controlling NFTs rather than just user accounts. So that is a prototype that they did, and that is going into the actual CP47, generic implementation. And additionally, we are starting to get back into developing gas and storage pricing models. Note that these two things are currently intertwined because the only means of accounting for resources right now that we have is gas. So we use that to account both for use of compute time and also for use of storage. And of course, this is not ideal. And so we're trying to separate these two and develop, price models that is hopefully an improvement over what you see currently on Ethereum, for example, right? So basically, we want to be able to support enterprise workloads that is, not compatible with intraday volatility and the, long-term unpredictability of gas prices that you see in many other blockchains. So we are developing a new congestion pricing model from scratch to deal with these issues.
So what does it mean for the users of the blockchain, this new pricing model?
So hopefully it will mean that, if you have business critical workloads to run, right, you will be able to actually budget for them, right? And we do have, existing ideas for these things, such as, gas futures markets. But in fact, my colleague Ziki actually has, potentially a better approach to tackling these things. So, and that, it's very early stages. So, I cannot tell you right now that what's going to come out might be something radically different from a, gas futures market, or maybe it's going to be something very similar. But we're starting with that.
Yeah, I can definitely speak to this. So, from a product perspective, right? What we've promised our customers and the broader community and enterprise, most importantly, is that you don't pay when you use AWS, right? When we use Amazon Web Service, we don't pay for it in terms of Amazon stock, right? This is what happens in crypto, which is silly, right? I understand that the token needs to have utility, and we completely agree to that, and that's the way it's got to be. But the reality is, from a pragmatic perspective, people still think about their budgeting in terms of fiat. And even if they were to think about it in terms of crypto, it would still need to be a much more like stable unit, right? Where it's not something that's subject to the kind of price volatility that we see in tokens today, right? And when you also think about, well, why did Ethereum use the gas model? What was the purpose of the gas model? Well, one of the things we've come to realize is that all economics inside cryptocurrency really drives down to security, right? The reason you have an economic model is because those economics provide security for the blockchain. And the gas model is no different, right? What is the problem that the gas model is trying to solve is the halting problem. It's the problem where somebody sends in this really big, gnarly, terrible contract that sends all the VMs spinning in an infinite loop, right? That's called the halting problem. And that would eventually, that's a security risk, right? So you have to make sure that nobody does that, right? And that they have to be able to, and what's the great constraint for that? It's expense, right? The constraint for that is if you use more compute, you pay more and more for it. Similarly, you use more storage, you pay more and more for it. And the gas model is a brilliant solution to that. But it suffers the problem of, that blockchains fundamentally are constrained because they're very expensive computation. You basically have one VM that's replicated across n number of instances, however many instances you have in the protocol, and you are still limited by capacity. And of course, you do all kinds of things to increase throughput. We've done the same thing. We've made consensus a lot more efficient. But let's be brutally honest, right? There isn't ever going to be a single global computer that's going to handle all of the throughput for the world. That's just not realistic. It's not reasonable. Every resource of any value is valuable because it's necessarily constrained. And I think the same thing applies here. So the question I put to the research team is there finding me a creative way to solve for the halting problem without necessarily using opcode costing, right? Because when you talk about opcode costing, then you get to this level of granularity that probably is overkill. Right. So let's solve one problem without hamstringing ourselves to necessarily opcode costing and very granular storage costing. As long as you're not trying to bring the system to its knees, either intentionally or unintentionally, and we can account for that, let's look at a creative way to get to price stability, right? That isn't making things way complicated to where we shoot ourselves in the foot. So that was my thinking around it. So yeah, that's the bit on gas model and gas costs.
Thank you, Madam.
So we've talked a lot about the technical update. So I'll provide the last update on the Trail of Bits piece. We had a question from the community on the Trail of Bits. The Casper Ledger. So the Casper Ledger integration cleared the Trail of Bits security audit. I have the report here. I can throw it up on the screen really quickly if you'll allow me. Let me see if I can find it. Hang on one second, folks. Sorry for the delay here. Desktop, where is it? Oh, shoot, here we go. Oh, sorry, one moment, folks. My apologies. Share my screen. So here we'll see the Casper Labs Ledger Security Assessment. I'm not going to go into a lot of depth here. I'm just going to give you the executive summary. So just so everybody can see, we focused on the Ledger integration, and they also took a look at the web wallet. So resulted in 6 findings, 2 low severity issues, and then 4 informational issues. So nothing critical coming through. There was benefit from increased documentation. And so we are definitely going to be looking at doing some more, documentation in the web wallet. And so here you'll see here, project dashboard, high severity issue 0, medium 0, 2 low severity, 4 informational. right? So 2 in data validation, 1 in denial of service, 1 error reporting, testing, and undefined behavior. So we will be reviewing this in depth, and the team will make a decision on what they need to see here. So yeah, full transparency. You guys can take a moment to take a look at this and hit rewind here. So overall, a favorable outcome on the audit. We will be submitting this to Ledger Live, and the goal is to get not just the base Ledger integration done, but also submit to Ledger Live. That's really where we want to be. And the association is working on that in collaboration with Ledger. And the Ledger team is already working on the staking interface within Ledger. We felt that getting the base implementation through is going to be the fastest way to get us approved at Ledger, and then moving on to adding staking afterwards. So the staking implementation is already underway with Zondax, and we'll probably do another round of security review, but then presenting that update into Ledger will be more expedient. So that's the approach the team is taking. Okay, now I'm going to turn it back over to you, Piotr. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, Meda. All right, I think it's time for DevX DAO. I think that we have the DevX team, DevX DAO team with us. So let's start with the update, and then we will smoothly transition to Dr. Adam's presentation.
Ahoy, ahoy! I'm Tim Messer. I'm here with the update from the DevX DAO again. We have two new grants this week, and both of them are pretty revolutionary for pretty revolutionary bits of architecture for layer 1 blockchains as a whole, and obviously the reference implementation of a lot of these things will be on Casper. But the first bit, it basically attempts to tackle the issue of caching at scale for blockchains, right? So one of the things that you run into is deriving value transactions for smart contracts, and as a blockchain grows, truly verifying that that value is where you think it is gets harder and harder, because if you've got something that's been around for 6 months, that happens pretty quickly. If you got something that's been around for 2 years, well, it starts to get slower. So the Threefold Tech team has applied for and received a grant to start to crack this problem with what's called a trusted data lake, and this is going to require some actual research to figure out how to most efficiently define what is the important values and how to cache those appropriately. And the first grant also includes a proof of concept at a smaller scale. We also have another grant that was also approved alongside it, which is the storage fabric for all of that. So it's tempting to think of this as a bit of a side chain, but that's not truly accurate, because this is more data reference that allows the blockchain to stay maximally fast and efficient, even after it's starting to track billions and trillions of different transactions, and which will include all sorts of different stores of value and tokens, and even just types of transactions. This entire thing is also very important to DAO frameworks, because DAOs themselves are going to be lodging their votes, their determinations, their own personal histories on the blockchain as well, and probably pretty quick enough for them to reference their own decisions. But what about all of the context surrounding those decisions? So for auditing purposes and so forth. So we're really excited about the work that Threefold Tech is bringing into the ecosystem with all of that. And then beyond that, we also have a bunch of other milestones, just work getting done that has come through this week. The Golang SDK for the Casper network. This is an SDK that, to my understanding, is already being used by a couple of what are they called? Exchanges. That's what they're called. I was trying to keep too much in my head at one time. But yeah, it's already being used by a number of exchanges. They are passing their formal vote to get paid out, compensated for their hard work. We've also got the another milestone for the incentivized Casper testnet and the maintenance of that continuing on. And we also have a number of other like basic milestones that are getting completed, like a node validator security and compliance audit, as to act as an advisory for all of the validator runners on the Casper network. This is some of the basic things you need to be doing, which has the ancillary benefit of helping us decentralize the validator the validator pool by lowering the bar on all of the technical information that you have to know personally to be able to effectively run a good validator, right? And now with the professional security reviews and everything that are happening, you'll be able to look at the open sourced and completely free opinions of experts in the field. So that is the really quick update. Again, I encourage everybody to come hang out with the DevX DAO on our own community call right after this one, and we also have grant workshops on Fridays. That's basically my personal open office hours where I answer all questions regarding grants. And our pipeline continues to flow through really well, and I couldn't be happier. So that I'll take any questions there, but if I don't have any, back to you, Piotr.
Thank you very much, Tim. Thank you very much for this update. And speaking of grants, we have one grant participant with us. So there's AlphaFin company. Dr. Adler, over to you.
Yes. All right, thank you very much for hosting me here, and it's a perfect segue after Timothy because of all the nice support from the grant. The project for DLN is actually moving much faster. If I can get the screen share for a second, I'll show you what I mean. So basically, the project that we are doing here from AlphaFin is the company that is producing it. And what we think in AlphaFin is that the blockchain is going to do to the banking industry and financial industry just like what the internet done to the travel industry and other things there. So we are out to build all of those different things that we can do to help CeFi come over and move into DeFi. DLN is the decentralized lending network, and it's basically solving one critical problem, which is microfinance. And why is microfinance? Because there are 2 billion underbanked adults, which means there is like 4 billion people globally that do not have access to banking systems. Thus, they are excluded from the financial system. And the only solution that actually helped was the one from Dr. Muhammad Yunus, the Nobel Prize winning economist, who invented the micro lending and allowed people to go there first. They laughed at what he was doing, then they fought it, and then he got the Nobel Prize there. That industry is today $150 billion industry serving 100 million people, 82% of which are women. And the repayment level there is 98% as compared to regular loans, which is 88% at best. So it's much better there, but there is a problem with it. What's the problem? The problem is cost. So because they are relying on conventional banking system and conventional rails, it's really hard for them to streamline, to be fast, to tackle it globally. They are localized and still using old rails, as we all know. Those are very inefficient. And then access. There are financial deserts all across the globe because from a banking point of view, it's not worth it or feasible to put a bank in an area unless it has enough money for the bank to be established. And then the current lending, even with micro lending, is focused just to basically help one person, the borrower, at most. And thus it's not sustainable, does not help the community. However, we can change all of this stuff because we have the power of a blockchain. So what DLN is trying to do is to create affordable loans that at the protocol level provide for zero interest to the borrower and no fees on it. And allow it to be accessible universally. If you have a cell phone, then you can access it, utilizing something called social staking smart contract that enables this process, and hence making it sustainable. The friends and the family will benefit from it, as well as the one that is borrowing there. So if you look at the current micro-lending system, it's a binary system, meaning it has a borrower and a lender. And in order for the borrower to access the lender, they need to have a collateral, but they are unbanked. And so they don't have a bank to begin with. They don't have any collaterals at all. Hence, it's a non-starter, and they are committed to shark loans and all of that, which basically sign their life away. That's the problem that I'm trying to solve. What does it what happens today if you don't have money? You do have friends and you do have family. So you usually go to your friends and family and ask them for money, and they say like, oh, it's you again. So why? Because there is nothing in it for them. But why is that? Why can't we include them in the system? So let's model them in a trinary system where you have a borrower, a community investor, and a lender. So I want to transform the borrower to an entrepreneur that is presenting a certain proposal. Here is what I want to do to better my life. And your friends and family are basically your community investors, those that are investing in you. And hence, both they help you and they also get rewarded for doing that. And then the lenders would be the people providing the liquidity in the system. So how that would happen on the blockchain? By creating something called the social staking smart contract. So a borrower would actually create a proposal and says in it, here is what I need to do, all of pieces there. And then the borrower would invite the community investors to support him on the proposal. And when they support him by locking in their assets, today, if you do that and lock your assets in the CeFi, those assets are dormant. They are not utilized at all. But from a blockchain, as an economist, I look at it from the point of view of you right now converted that debt position into a fully collateralized, risk mitigated debt position, which means it's very attractive for lending pools in general. So at that point, we can borrow against it. And because we have the social staking smart contract, meaning it's immutable and it will kick by itself, that allows us to provide that guarantee to the lender. So still the friends and family are on the hook for the borrower. However, in the back end, we are investing all of the stuff in DeFi to generate ROI that is split three ways. 1/3 goes to the community investors, thanking them for helping their own. And 1/3 goes to the lender, thanking them for the use of their capital. And then the other one goes to the network to pay for any fees or anything like that. So then the borrower receives it on the protocol level as a free loan basically there. So I took that concept and started thinking, okay, where can we start with this? And I like going with a big idea, but I want to start with a doable point. So you have to look at the current established organization. Right now, MFIs that have been established, microfinance institutions, cater to that segment, and they are hurting because there's very little kind of like, access and support to them. COVID is hurting that more. And I want to take their model, embrace what they are doing, help them with their people that they are already serving, then enhancing it by saying, okay, bring in your community that exists there. so that they would basically come in on the backing, on the investing with the MFI itself. And then the third and final goal would be, now we did not only give the community a fish, we taught the community how to fish. So we did not give the community a loan, we taught them how to provide loans for themselves, completely decentralized system that can survive by itself on its own, completely unsupervised. They handle everything there, but with a practical look on how do you establish it, because you can't just throw it out there and people will start using it. You have to guide them in how it would work. So took that and started talking with MFIs across the globe, and every and each one of them joined except for two. The first tranche of them are nicely spread across all the developing countries, from West Africa all the way to Middle East, all the way to India and to Afghanistan. All of them are very excited to join. 130 million budget and 2 million lives. And I have another batch and another batch after that that are waiting to see all of that stuff go in. Very first one is DCBS. It's an Indian MFI that works in West Bengal. They serve 18,000 and their budget is 2.8 million. Small, but in a very complicated regulatory framework. So we are working with them because if we can succeed there, we'll succeed anywhere. And the philosophy is, this is not going to be an overnight $1 billion sushi swap. It's going to be step by step, building it, creating reports, use cases on how that would work, sharing it with the community, showing you blockchain, banking the unbanked, addressing the masses, taking people from the brinks of despair and debt into starting their life. Next on there is Fatin in the Middle East. It's a little bit bigger with a bigger budget. And then we'll work our way through the rest of them to make sure that we are able of helping those people, first a dozen, then 100 per each of those MFIs. Then it goes to a few thousands and then 100,000. And then we will be able of showing a shining example why and how that is used and how do we implement blockchain. So that leads me to the next question. Why Casper Labs? Well, fast transactions, upgradable smart contracts. You guys know all of that stuff already, dynamic teams. But what I look at it as well is there is agile technology out there and focus on quality, and emerging ecosystem means there isn't the preconceived notions that you have with other systems where you have to comply with existing things. This is new. We're building everything together. And they have a big focus on the MENA region, which is critical because, for example, Dubai is in the center of the developing countries. You have Africa on one end and you have Asia on the other end. And Casper is embracing the mainstream adoption. So it's focused on how to make it actual, real, practical way. Like Mironal always says, decentralization is the heart of all of this stuff. So how do we get it practical, get it in the hand of people? So the application, which I would like to show you in a next presentation for all of that stuff, you would not know that it is a blockchain based. You would simply see an app that is helping you to perform a certain feature and step, 2-3 clicks, and you are out and it's working through that. And that's where the DevDAO grant came into play, because of all the support and feeling as a part of a family that when you need help, they are always there. They help you with the steps. It's not more focused on like, hey, you have to comply with a lot of stuff. It's more of like, what is the objective? What are you trying to do? Let's get this technology in the hands of the masses. So that is helping expedite all this development, because like if you check the Le Monde, they just came up with an article that talks about COVID-19 is creating a tsunami of debt, even in micro-lending realm. It's crushing people, and they are eager to get a solution like this so that we can implement it, get in their hand, and get them out of the poverty cycle. And the same thing with Dubai. Dubai is a really great place to be. It's just in the middle of everything. It's growing. It's dynamic and embracing new technologies all of the time there. I've been speaking for a whole while, So I'll stop here and get any questions if anybody wants.
Thank you. This is great and very uplifting as well. I was trying to ask you why Casper, but you already answered this. And my second follow-up question would be, what is on your technical roadmap right now? What are the next points there?
Fantastic. So that's a really good question there. And I'm a PhD. I publish papers. My last paper was actually NFT is just in the beginning of the month in Spain. So I like to go methodical. I like to build stuff very methodically, get critiques. If I build something and it's not criticized, something's wrong with that. So we want to make sure that this is perfect. And we've done our initial modeling on EVM just to make sure that it is functioning the way that we like. And then right now we are going per the grant milestones to move into taking all the stuff, migrating it into the Casper ecosystem, taking advantage of the subtleties that exist in the Casper and the power of Rust underneath there. So first thing is deploying those assets, because we use internal assets in the system that allow us to manipulate all of that. That milestone has been done. I'm sharing it with the DevDAO today. And then from there, we are doing the customized user interface per MFI, because those MFI have no money to build anything, or even if we give them an SDK, they will not be able to building it. So we are doing that for them, thanks to the grant. And then once that is done, the next step from there is deploying it into the field with them, with those 12 borrowers from each of that MFI, and then bring the reports, which I will go through and discuss on calls like those. And then from there, we're going to go to the next tranche, technically. And one big thing that is going to happen in the back end is the bridges between those assets and access to DeFi's. So my hope is we'll have more of those bridges going through that allow us to take advantage of MFI's returns on the back end, because the treasury policy in the protocol will need to take advantage of the best yield possible there. That's kind of like the current short-term to mid-term roadmap that will take us to January.
Great. Thank you very much. I think it's not your last appearance here on our community call, and looking forward to also see your application in the future. And I'm very sorry, but we need to switch. We have 15 minutes left. Just a friendly reminder, in 15 minutes, DevX DAO will start their community call. So you are very much welcome there as well. And now I will share my screen again. Yes, so we were on a technical update, we were on DevX DAO grants, and now over to you, Jake. Tell us a little bit more about Casper Korea community.
Yeah, sure. Look, well, thanks for having me on this call. And alongside with that, I'm a recent joiner to the Casper Labs with the well-structured and also well-decentralized, I guess, ecosystem of Casper Association and DevX DAO. The technical updates obviously blew my mind. Look, I'm not a tech guy, but I'm more of a enterprise along with biz dev, and also from the community and the marketing side. My focus for the past number of years have been on growing the layer 1 ecosystem. I would say, the co-founder of Phantom Foundation back in the days in 2017, which did grow to a tremendous success the past year or so. However, obviously with the market appetite given not so much great these days. But look, aside from that, I'm more of the fundamental growth driver, where increasing the usage of the Casper ecosystem will be my main focus. Having said that, that the focus would be on development framework, and also from the community exercise specifically in Korea, but also globally as well. Look, to break things down, my focus is just in two main concepts. To give everyone rather a quick update on South Korea scene. Like yesterday, for example, the Bank of Korea just made an announcement to engage in the process of CBDC project, which is the centralized currency exchange of some sort in South Korea. But there are some key players of enterprise grade solutions that are providing here in Korea. But at the same time, I think Casper does have the right team and the expertise, and most importantly, the live tech that can support some of the enterprise, in Korea specifically. Unlike any other Asian countries, Korea by far is conservative, but at the same time quite aggressive when it comes down to finding and the only key handful of players that are out there to help them grow. And I'm obviously going to be working to make sure that Casper is going to be one of the top key players there. From the global sort of layer one scene, as I mentioned before, look, the main primarily focus will be on the development community. And having said that, that's also towards the transparency nature. A lot of the layer one projects do, I would say, often have tremendous amount of work that's already been done, and also have succeeded in their progresses, do often fail to communicate that towards the community. So my focus also in Korea would be to promote and to honor the greatest developers in the blockchain ecosystem and help them genuinely, whether it's from the capital raising perspective or whether it's development forming perspective, whether it's BD part of the perspective, and to really help them grow their ecosystem, as long as they're obviously building on top of Casper on that note. So, focusing on that and delivering transparency to the community. So rather telling them about some of the hackathon events, which we are planning in the next upcoming months, is going to be one of the key highlights where we can really communicate with the communities directly. Alongside with that is that, we obviously have our Telegram channels and mass communication base. So being the person who can, I would say, be live 24/7 and to communicate and to educate a lot of the people that are struggling to understand Casper will be my main focus. And yeah, I mean, look, I myself is a big believer in the DeFi and NFT and metaverse part of the space. NFT and metaverse is having a tremendous growth in South Korea, along with Roblox, Zepeto, some of the metaverse hype which is happening. I do not think that this is going to disappear and this is short-term hype, but rather a strong growth ecosystem which is going to grow in its own nature through a DAO framework of this kind. DeFi by far, I myself, come from before crypto world as a banker. Bankers are obviously not welcome so much in crypto, but look, the idea is to understand that blockchain in its nature at the start was primarily made for the financial part of the industry, or at least the core nature of it was derived from the crash of the financial, Bitcoin, for example, was due to this financial crisis. So, the idea behind that was that, look, if we can have and grow Casper as one of the core DeFi ecosystem of the other layer one projects that are out there, and most importantly, making friends with them, not really to replace or to kill any of the other ecosystems, but rather having a cross bridge part of the layer solutions and being able to communicate with the other layer ones, but at the same time, treasuring the existing community, but growing the existing community and giving people the reason why they should be joining our network is part of the messaging and the solution which I want to provide. Look, last but not least, specifically in South Korea, I mentioned the enterprise adoption, DeFi and NFT focus, and the hackathon developer community focus that are out there, but it does break. Korea in itself do have sometimes a very obscure environment where it is a Korean language, separately non-English speaking country. Along with that, not so much, I would say, communicating along with the other countries, including within Asia. of its, its country of its own. So the idea would be to, help along with the, exchange listings or whatnot, and to make sure that both, centralized exchange sections and decentralized extension of the Casper ecosystem will grow. Working on the fiat on and off ramps would be also one of my highest priorities.
Great, thank you very much. A lot of topics, very interesting recap. With that, I think we can check on the questions. Ashley, do we have anything coming from YouTube?
Yeah, we just got one question. I don't think that this pertains to us, but maybe one of our dApps or DeFi. Do you provide services for copyright protection?
Mada?
I think this could have been one of our guests from a previous phone call, of community call that to discuss this. I just can't remember which one.
Do have a thought on the on that if I could say so.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because like one of the grants DXD has been working with is Casper sign, which is basically signing to and attesting to documents on the blockchain. That absolutely could work for establishing copyrights and trademarks for later reference. So like is it a formalized service that is one-to-one with the more centralized way of doing business right now? Probably not. But like the presence of Casper sign and the ongoing work that the digital strategies team is accomplishing with regard to that will definitely make Casper a heck of a lot more useful for that than for example Ethereum.
Thank you, Tim. No further questions from the community.
I'm checking. Second. Do you have anything from our panelists? Yes, Dr. Adel.
Yeah, just wanted to take this opportunity for a shameless plug and ask the community if anybody wants to help, just come see us at dln.org. Join our Telegram group. This is by the community for the community project. So all hands are welcome to come and help be part of the next microfinance revolution on Casper.
Great, thank you very much. All right, Ashley, if you don't have any questions, I think we could conclude the meeting for today.
Thank you, Piotr.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Appreciate all of y'all.